Normally a State Department assignment to work in a state for a governor be 1 year or 2 years. But I ended up staying 4 years. And one of the ways that happened was that I had developed a serious medical problem, probably linked back to my service in Vietnam and my being in contact with Agent Orange. I had a terrible lung disease called sarcoid. And it's a disease of unknown origins, but certainly I had in fact filed a suit against the State Department for $1 million about the possible damage to my health from being exposed to Agent Orange. And that legal suit was in process while I was in Iowa. And so when the state, and I was going to the Mayo Clinic and treated by a specialist there. So when the State Department said, oh, your 2 years are up, you have to go someplace else, I said, I'm in the middle of my treatment. I have a suit for $1 million. If you're going to pull me out of here away from my doctors, then I will, have one more element to use in my suit for damages against the State Department. So they quickly decided, oh, it's okay, you can have a 3rd year in Iowa, and that was then going into a 4th year. And the people in personnel, human resources, we didn't call it that, but personnel, they were desperate to pull me out of Iowa and force me to go on to a next assignment. Now I had been here 3 years, I had 2 children, they were growing up, working with Governor Ray, and I started thinking about, I wonder, should I even go back to the State Department? Have I found the right road? Is my life here? And so there were 3 moments when I thought very seriously about ending my career in the Foreign Service and changing the direction. First came when the executive director of the National Governors Association resigned, stepped down, and they were searching for a new leader of that organization. And Governor Ray put my name forward, and I was on the short list. And I went to Park City, Utah at the summer meeting in 1982 and had an interview for the job. Ultimately, they chose someone else, but I was in the running on the very short list. I'm not sure to this day if they had offered me the job. Maybe I would have, in fact, taken it. I came back to Iowa, though, after that, without the job offer. And then Governor Ray was betwixt and between about whether to run for another term. He had been challenged by former Governor Harold Hughes, and he was back in and running and said, I want you to stay. You and one other officer, you'll be co-chiefs of staff. You'll be running the state with me in my next administration if I'm elected. And of course, he had been elected 5 times. I thought, how could he lose? But Harold Hughes, formidable candidate. And then it was discovered that so I kind of made the decision. I told him, I'll stay. I'll resign from the State Department, stay and work with you. Then Harold Hughes was discovered was no longer an Iowan. He didn't own a house, he didn't vote, he didn't pay taxes. He wasn't eligible to run. When he left the race, Governor Ray said, I'm going to retire. So now there's nothing to stay for. So I was packing up, going to leave. I had been forced to bid on an assignment and was finally going to go to Europe to become an officer at the U.S. mission to the UN in Vienna, Austria. I'd never heard of it. When Michael Gartner, the Des Moines Register, wonderful man named Dick Gilbert, who was working there, called me and said, we want you to come and be part of the Des Moines Register. Be part of one of what were considered one of the 10 best newspapers in all of America. An organization, a paper for which I had enormous pride. And And so I was thinking very, very, very hard about doing that, having my family stay in our house in Des Moines. I got to Austria, sitting there. It was not the magical experience I was expecting, quite the opposite. I felt out of place, unconnected, that this wasn't for me. It was, once again, the wrong turn. And I remember being there at like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, which is about 7 or 8 o'clock. And I reached over in the dark. I picked up the phone, held it to my ear, and was getting set to dial the number and call Des Moines and tell Dick Gilbert that I was coming to take the position at the Des Moines Register. I'm not sure I could explain to you why, what caused me to pause. I put the phone back down, went back to sleep, and spent the next 20-some years in the State Department, became ambassador. It was another one of those wrong turns that had led me to the right road. And that's an interesting story about my experiences in Vienna that I'll save for another time.